The throne room was silent. It always was when she entered. The queen of the Zenari Empire walked slowly across the black crystal floor, her long cloak trailing behind her like a river of midnight. Her crown glowed with living light, pulsing with power. Around her, alien guards knelt, their armored heads bowed low. No one dared look into her eyes. She was the most powerful being in the galaxy. She had conquered stars, crushed fleets, and bent empires to her will. Billions feared her name. To them, she was a goddess of war. To her enemies, she was death in silver and fire. But tonight, as she sat on her throne, a seat carved from the bones of a fallen titan, she felt nothing. Not pride, not joy, only silence. Her gaze wandered to the window. Outside, the great city of Veralia stretched across the horizon, shining like 1,000 suns. War banners rippled in the wind. Ships drifted in the black sky like metal dragons. It was beautiful. It was everything she had fought for. And yet, it felt empty. "Your Majesty?" A voice broke the stillness. A tall officer knelt before her, his scales gleaming in the torchlight. "The war in the Trine Belt is over. The enemy surrendered. All systems bow to you now. The galaxy is yours." The queen looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she spoke. "Is that all?" The officer froze. He did not understand. The galaxy was hers. There was nothing left to take, nothing left to win. She waved him away. "Leave me." The chamber emptied. Guards, servants, council all gone. She was alone, sitting on her throne of bones. She pressed her fingers against her lips, a strange heaviness in her chest. For centuries, she had lived for conquest. War was her breath. Victory was her blood. But what was left now? A crown, a throne, silence. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Why does victory feel so hollow?" The sound of heavy doors opening broke her thoughts. She turned sharply, expecting a guard, a messenger, someone with news. Instead, 2 soldiers entered, dragging something between them. No, someone, a man. The soldiers shoved him to the floor. His hands were bound, his clothes torn, his face bruised but defiant. He was tall, though thin, with skin the color of pale stone and strange dark hair. His eyes, bright, sharp, alive, looked straight at her. A human. The queen raised an eyebrow. "What is this?" The officer who had returned spoke quickly. "A prisoner, Majesty, from the outer colonies. He led the rebels, killed many of our soldiers before capture." Her voice was calm, cold. "Why bring him here?" "He asked for you," the officer said, confused. "Before we executed him, he demanded to speak with the queen herself." The queen's interest stirred. No one demanded anything from her. No one dared. She rose slowly from her throne, her long cloak whispering across the floor. Her silver eyes burned as she looked down at him. "You asked for me," she said softly, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. "Do you understand who I am?" The human lifted his head, blood running from the corner of his lip. He smiled, a small, dangerous smile. "Yes," he said. "You're the queen who thinks she has everything." The guards tensed, ready to strike him for his insolence. But the queen raised a hand. Her eyes narrowed. "And what?" she said slowly. "Does a human know of everything?" He met her gaze without fear. "I know this," he said. "You have galaxies, armies, power beyond measure. But you're empty." The words hit like a blade. For a moment, the chamber seemed to grow colder. She stepped closer, her voice a whisper now. "Empty?" "Yes," he said. "You rule the stars, but you have nothing real." Something inside her stirred a flicker, small but sharp. She could kill him. One word, and he would be gone, just like countless others who had crossed her. And yet, She didn't. Instead, she crouched before him, her silver eyes locking on his dark ones. "Then tell me, human," she murmured, "what is real?" The man smiled again, his voice steady, calm. "Not war, not crowns, not thrones made of bones. Something more." For the first time in centuries, the queen felt something deep inside her chest. A question, a hunger dot, and before she could speak again, he whispered 3 words that would change her destiny forever. "I can give it." Asterisk, the human did not look like much, not to the guards, not to the council, not even to the stars, but to the queen. He was different. His eyes never lowered. His voice never trembled. And now, his words, those 3 small words, echoed in her. Mind like thunder. I can give it. The queen rose slowly, her cloak flowing like dark water across the floor. The guards stiffened, unsure of her intent. A single gesture from her, and they would kill him where he knelt. But instead, she spoke. "Unbind him." The soldiers froze. One dared to ask, "Majesty, he is dangerous. Do you question me?" Her voice cut sharper than a blade. The guard dropped to his knees instantly, stammering, "Forgive me, Queen of Stars. Forgive. Unbind him," she repeated. Now, chains clattered to the floor. The human flexed his hands, slow and deliberate, never breaking her gaze. He did not thank her. He only stood tall, even with blood dripping from his lip, and said, "So, the queen listens." A ripple of shock moved through the hall. No one spoke to her like that. No one lived long enough after trying. She stepped closer, her silver eyes like burning moons. "Speak carefully, human. Few have a second chance to use their tongue." He smirked. "Then I'll use it well." Asterisk, the queen studied him in silence. His face was strange, so soft, compared to the sharp, scaled features of her kind. His skin was pale stone. His hair, black like the void between stars. But his eyes, they were alive, fierce, unbroken. "What is this gift?" she asked at last, her voice low, dangerous. "What can a human give a queen who owns galaxies?" He smiled, not the smile of a fool, but the smile of someone who saw deeper than the surface. "Not war," he said. "Not power, not fear. You've had those for centuries. Haven't they left you empty?" The word struck harder than any blade. She felt her breath catch, but only for a heartbeat. Her face stayed calm, cold. "You are bold," she whispered, "but boldness does not impress me. Power does." "Then you're more lost than I thought," he said softly. Her guard stepped forward, weapons humming with energy. One move, and his body would be nothing but ash. But the queen raised her hand. "Leave us," she said. "Majesty one?" Guard began. "Leave." The command thundered through the hall. In seconds, the guards were gone. The great doors shut with a heavy boom, sealing the chamber in silence. Only the queen and the human. Asterisk, she moved closer, until only a few steps separated them. She was taller than him, radiant in her living armor, her crown burning like a star. He stood before her in torn clothes, bruised and bleeding, yet somehow he looked like the stronger one. "You risk death with every word," she murmured. "Yet you speak as if you want it." "I've seen death," he said. "I've seen life too, and I know which one matters more." She tilted her head. "And what would you give me, human?" "Speak truth, for lies will burn you alive." His voice was calm, steady. "I'll give you something no throne can give, something your armies can't conquer." She narrowed her eyes. "And what is that?" He leaned closer, so close that his breath touched her skin when he whispered, "Something real." The words hung in the air like a spark before a storm. The queen felt her heart, a heart she had long thought frozen stir, for the first time in centuries. Real. What did that even mean anymore? She had ruled for lifetimes. She had taken planets, crushed rebellions, erased entire species from history. And yet, this fragile creature, this human, spoke as if he could give her what she had always lacked. Her voice, soft as shadow, broke the silence. "And if I refuse?" He smiled faintly. "Then you'll keep your throne, your armies. You? Empty nights." Asterisk. She stepped even closer now, until there was only the smallest space between them. Her silver eyes burned into his, searching for fear, finding none. "You speak like a man who wishes to die," she whispered. "No," he said, his voice almost gentle. "I speak like a man who wishes to live." The queen felt something sharp twist in her chest, a feeling so old, so forgotten, it almost hurt. She should have ended him then. One move, and he would be nothing but dust on the floor. But instead, she turned away. "Take him," she called, her voice echoing. The guards returned, confused but silent. "Do not kill him. Lock him in the sky cells." The human smirked as they grabbed his arms. "Sky cells? That sounds high up." Her silver eyes flickered toward him once more before the doors closed. "High enough to fall, human," she said softly. And as the doors sealed, she realized something chilling. For the first time in her reign, she was thinking about someone other than herself. And that thought terrified her more than any war. Asterisk. The sky cells were not meant for comfort. They hung like black teeth on the edge of the queen's palace, suspended over a bottomless void. One wrong step, and the prisoner would vanish into the eternal clouds far below. It was a place for traitors, for those who needed to suffer before they died. But the man inside did not look broken. He sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady, as if the endless drop below him meant nothing, as if the whole galaxy could burn, and he would not flinch. The queen stood outside the energy bars, her cloak fluttering in the icy wind. She had come alone. She told herself it was to question him, nothing more. And yet, she had never done this before. Never visited a prisoner at night. The door hissed open. He didn't even look up. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly. Her silver eyes narrowed. "You should not speak before your queen." He opened his eyes, those strange, deep human eyes, and smiled faintly. "Then stop coming here like a ghost." Her chest tightened, though she hid it well. She stepped inside. The energy barrier closed behind her with a crackle of blue light. "Do you know why I've not killed you?" she asked, her voice smooth like poisoned honey. "Because you're curious," he said calmly. "Because for the first time in 1,000 years, someone told you the truth." Her eyes burned. "You know nothing of me." "I know this," he said, leaning forward, his chains clinking softly. "You rule everything. You hold galaxies in your hands. And yet you came here, alone, to see me." The wind howled through. The sky cells, carrying the sound of silence between them. Asterisk. She crouched in front of him, her eyes glowing in the dim light. "Tell me, human, what is this thing you claim you can give me? This truth?" He looked at her, steady and calm. Something real, the same words, that same spark that had shaken her before. "And what is real?" She whispered, her voice sharper now. "Speak, for if your next words bore me, they will be your last." He leaned closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of his breath against her skin. His voice was low, but every word struck like a blade. "Life," he said, "not death, not fear, not a throne made of bones. Life you can't control. Life that grows wild and strong. Something that makes even a queen fall to her knees in wonder." Her eyes narrowed, but her breath hitched ever so slightly. "You speak in riddles." "No," he said softly. I speak of something your empire forgot long ago. Love, creation. Blood that is not spilled in war, but born in peace. For the first time in centuries, the queen felt her heartbeat quicken. A heat crawled under her skin, a heat that had nothing to do with anger. You dare suggest? Yes, he said, before she could finish. You could take any man, any alien, any lover you wanted, but none of them would give you what I can. None of them would give you something new, something impossible. Her breath turned sharp. And what is that? He smiled, slow and dangerous. A future, one that begins inside you. The words hung in the cold air, heavy and alive. Asterisk, the queen stared at him, her mind a storm. The very idea was madness. Impossible. Her kind did not mix with others. The laws of blood forbade it. Her throne would crumble. Her council would riot. And yet, the thought lit something deep inside her, a fire she had never known. A hunger. So raw it terrified her. You think to tempt me with desire? She hissed, though her voice trembled for the first time. His gaze did not waver. Not desire, he said softly. Hope. For one long moment, neither spoke. The wind roared. Around the sky cells, howling like a beast. Below them, the abyss waited, endless and black. Finally, she rose, her cloak swirling like a storm. Her face was calm again, but her heart was chaos. You are a fool, she said coldly. And fools die. She turned to leave. But just as the barrier hissed open, his voice stopped her. Kill me if you want, he said softly. But you'll never stop thinking about what I just said. She froze. Because he was right. Even as she walked away, even as the doors closed behind her, his words burned in her mind like fire on ice. A future. One that begins inside you. Asterisk, the queen did not return to her chambers that night. She walked the empty halls of the palace. Instead, her mind a battlefield. Every step echoed against the black marble floors, ringing louder than any war drum she had ruled for centuries without doubt. Her word was law, her will was iron, and yet now, a human's words had cracked. Something inside her, a future, one that begins inside you. It was madness. It was impossible. It was forbidden. And still, she wanted to hear him say it again. Asterisk, by the next evening, she could not stay away. She told herself it was strategy, that she needed to understand this man before deciding his fate. But deep inside, she knew the truth. The sky cells howled with cold wind when she stepped inside again. The guards outside bowed low, not daring to ask why their queen returned to a prisoner twice. The human was there, sitting cross-legged just like before, his chains glinting in the pale moonlight. When he heard the door hiss, he didn't flinch. He only opened his eyes and smiled faintly. You came back, he said quietly. Her voice was sharp, cold. Do not mistake my presence for weakness. Of course not, he said softly. I know strength when I see it. Something in his tone made her chest tighten. She hated that feeling. She walked closer, her boots echoing against the steel floor. Your words mean nothing. You speak of love, of life. Do you think such things can move me? He looked up, his dark eyes steady. They already have, her heart lurched. For one breath, she could not speak. Asterisk, she crouched in front of him, her cloak wrapping around her like living shadow. Her silver eyes burned into his face. You are chained, helpless, one word away from death. Yet you speak as if you command me. I don't command you, he said calmly. I offer you something your empire can't, something you've never tasted. She tilted her head, her voice almost a whisper. And what is that? Freedom, he said, not for me, for you. Her laugh was low and dangerous. I am the Queen of Stars. What could you give me that I do not already own? He leaned forward slowly, the chains clinking as he moved. His voice was deep and soft when he spoke. Choice. A reason to wake up tomorrow. A reason to smile that isn't built on blood. For the first time, her breath shook. She hated it. She hated him. She hated that his words made her feel. Alive. Asterisk, without thinking, her hand moved just slightly, just enough to brush against his cheek. Warm. So warm compared to the cold halls. She lived in. The touch lasted only a heartbeat, but it burned like fire. Her chest tightened. Her silver eyes locked on his. And in that moment, she saw something she had never seen in 1,000 lifetimes. A gaze without fear. He didn't bow. He didn't tremble. He simply looked at her. As a person, not a throne. Pulled her hand back fast, as if it had touched molten metal. Her breath came sharp. "This is forbiddance," she whispered. "Then why does it feel so right?" He asked quietly. Her pulse pounded. She turned away, her cloak snapping in the wind. "You are nothing," she said, but her voice lacked its usual power. "And yet, you are dangerous." He smiled faintly. "Only to the emptiness you've been living with." Her fists clenched. For a moment, she wanted to kill him, if only to silence the storm inside her. But before she could speak, the door burst open. The guards fell first. A blade of plasma tore through the air, slicing armor like paper. Shadows spilled into the sky cells, 7 figures in black, faces hidden behind masks. The queen spun, her living armor flashing to life, silver light crawling across her skin. Energy blades ignited in her hands. "Kill the traitor," one assassin hissed, their voice twisted with hatred. "And kill the human," her council had sent them. She knew it instantly. They had grown tired of whispers, tired of her visiting. A prisoner. They wanted to end this. And her, if they could. Steel screamed. The assassins lunged. The queen moved like a storm, blades flashing, cutting down 2 in a single sweep. Blood sprayed across the steel floor. But more came, striking. Fast and hard. And then one blade cut for her back. She didn't see it, didn't hear it. But the human did. With a roar, he lunged forward, breaking his chains with sheer force of desperation. Metal snapped. His hands grabbed the assassin's wrist, twisting hard until the blade fell away. He slammed his head into the masked figure, sending them sprawling. For a moment, the queen froze, not because of the fight, but because of the look in his eyes. Raw, fierce, protective, not for himself. For her. Together they fought, 2 against 7. Silver fire and human rage. When it was over, the floor was wet with blood, and the wind carried the stench of death. The queen stood panting, her armor cracked, her silver eyes glowing like dying stars. The human stood beside her, blood on his knuckles, his chest heaving. Slowly, she turned to him. For a long time, neither spoke. The wind screamed around them, tearing at their hair, their clothes. Finally, she whispered, "Why?" He met her gaze, his voice low and rough. "Because no one should fight alone. Not even a queen." Her breath caught. Something inside her broke, and something new began. For the first time in centuries, the queen felt human. The sky cells smelled of blood. It dripped from the silver floor, painting dark lines that shimmered under the pale moonlight. The assassins lay broken, their bodies twisted in silence. Wind howled through the cracks in the steel walls, carrying the cold breath of the endless void below. The queen stood still in the center, her living armor pulsing weakly, glowing silver where it was cracked and burned. Her chest rose and fell, each breath heavy, slow. The human stood beside her, chains shattered around his wrists, blood streaking his jaw and hands. His chest heaved, But his eyes, those strange, stubborn human eyes, were calm. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the whisper of the wind and the distant hum of alarms. Finally, she turned her head toward him. Her voice was low, sharp, but softer than before. "You broke your chains." He gave a faint, crooked smile. "You're welcome." Her lips almost curved, but she stopped herself. "You saved me." "Someone had to," he said, his voice rough, steady. "And I wasn't going to let them take you." The words made something in her chest twist tight and hot. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever stood for her, not without a reason, not without fear. But before she could answer, the palace walls shook. A deep boom rolled through the metal structure like thunder from a god's throat. The alarm screamed louder now. Red lights flashed in the distance. "They're coming," the human said calmly. "More of them." The queen's silver eyes flared. She activated her wrist comb, her voice cutting like steel. "Guard units report." Static answered. Then her broken voice. "Majesty, the palace is compromised. Loyalists are falling. The council has declared war on you." The queen's jaw clenched. The words were no surprise. She had seen the hunger in their eyes for years. But to strike now, in her own stronghold, they had planned this well. And yet, they had not planned for him. She turned to the human, her voice sharp. "We leave now." He raised an eyebrow. "We?" Her silver eyes burned like fire. "You think I will let you die here after saving my life?" He smirked faintly. "Wasn't planning to die, but sure. Let's go." The sky cells shook again, dust falling from the ceiling as distant explosions rocked the palace. The queen tapped her armor, and a hidden panel opened on her wrist, revealing a blade of pure light. She sliced through his remaining chains in one motion. "Stay close," she ordered. "Not like I have a choice," he muttered. The energy barrier hissed open. They stepped out into chaos. Smoke curled through the silver halls, alarms screaming, like angry spirits. The scent of plasma and burning metal filled the air. Corpses lay scattered where guards had tried to resist the coup. Council assassins moved like shadows, hunting loyal soldiers through the corridors. The queen and the human moved fast, her cloak whipping behind her like a storm. 3 assassins turned a corner ahead, dark blades flashing. The queen leapt forward, her twin swords humming, slicing the first 2 in a single motion. The third lunged, but the human grabbed his arm, twisted, and drove the blade into his chest. The queen glanced back at him. For a moment, she almost smiled. They fought their way through endless halls, each clash ringing like thunder. Sparks flew. Metal burned. The human fought with bare hands, with stolen weapons, with a wild ferocity that shocked even her. He moved like a man with nothing to lose and everything to protect Dot by the time they reached the skyducts. The night was alive with fire. Dozens of warships floated in the black sky beyond the hangar, their engines glowing like angry suns. But most were enemy ships. "Your own fleet," the human said grimly. "They're waiting to kill you." "Not all of them," she said coldly. "Some still know loyalty. We just have to live long enough to find them." As they sprinted across the steel platform toward her personal cruiser, blaster fire erupted. From the shadows, the assassins had followed. "Go!" she shouted. Her voice cut through the roar of gunfire, but the human didn't run. He turned, grabbed a fallen rifle, and opened fire, covering her as she dashed for the ship. Plasma bolts screamed past his head, searing the air. He didn't stop, not until the queen's voice echoed through the hangar. "Now!" He ran, hard. His boots pounded on the steel floor as the cruiser's ramp lowered. He leapt aboard, just As the engines roared to life, the Queen stood at the controls. Her armor cracked, her face streaked with smoke, but her eyes still burned like molten silver. The cruiser lifted, thrusters screaming, the blast tearing bodies from the hangar floor. As it shot into the night sky, the stars stretched endless before them. The palace burned behind, a storm of fire and betrayal. The human collapsed into a seat, chest heaving, blood streaking his arms. Nice place you've got. Shame about the Civil War. The Queen turned, staring at him for a long, silent moment. Her throat tightened with words she had never spoken, not to anyone, not in centuries. Finally, she said softly, "You should have run." He met her gaze, eyes steady even now. "And leave you?" "Not a chance." Something broke inside her then. Not like glass-like ice. Ice that had caged her heart for lifetimes. She stepped closer, her silver eyes glowing faint in the dim light of the cockpit. Her voice was a whisper, almost lost in the hum of engines. "Why do you risk your life for?" Human?" His answer came low, certain. "Because you're worth it." Her breath caught. Her hand moved before her mind could stop it, fingers brushing his jaw. This time, she didn't pull away. For one long, dangerous heartbeat, the Queen forgot the galaxy, forgot her throne, forgot the blood that had stained her soul for centuries. For that moment, there was only him. The Queen had never run before, not from armies, not from fleets, not from death itself. And yet here, she was fleeing her own empire with a single human at her side. The cruiser sliced through the black sea of stars, engines glowing like fireflies in the void. Behind them, her palace burned, a wound bleeding light into the night. Sky. She sat at the controls, her silver armor cracked, smoke still clinging to her cloak. The weight of betrayal pressed heavy on her shoulders, but deeper still was something worse. Something she didn't want to name. Something that began with a smile. A voice. A pair of dark, human eyes. The human sat in the co-pilot's chair, staring out at the endless stars. His hands were raw, cut from shattered chains and stolen blades. His chest rose and fell slowly, exhaustion hiding behind a calm face. For a long time, neither spoke. Only the hum of engines filled the silence. Finally, he broke it. "You're quiet." The Queen's fingers tightened on the controls. "I am thinking." "About what?" His tone was soft, but it carried something more curiosity. Maybe even concern. She hesitated. The words clawed at her throat. For centuries, she had spoken only of war, law, victory. Words were weapons, and she wielded them with precision. But now, none of them seemed sharp enough. "Everything," she whispered at last. He turned his head, studying her profile, the sharp, regal lines of her face, the silver glow in her eyes dimmed now, softened by something new. "You lost your empire tonight," he said quietly, "and you're still alive. That means something." Her lips curved, not a smile, but close. "Do you think I care for thrones? Do you?" he asked gently. She looked at him then, truly looked, and something inside her broke open like a star, collapsing into light. The ship descended toward a hidden world, a place few knew, fewer dared to seek. A planet of endless forests and silver, seas far beyond the mapped stars. A world she had claimed long ago as a sanctuary, should the unthinkable ever happen. Tonight, the cruiser landed in a clearing of towering crystal trees. Their branches glowed with soft blue light, painting the night in colors no human sky had ever seen. The air shimmered with warmth, carrying the scent of strange flowers. For the first time in hours, silence felt safe. They stepped out together. The human tilted his head back, staring at the alien sky, the two moons casting silver shadows across his face. "Beautiful," he murmured. She watched him, her chest tight. Not the sky, not the trees. Him without the smoke and fire of war. She could see him clearly now, tired, scarred, but alive. Alive because he fought for her. Not for power, not for a crown. For her. Asterisk. They walked until they reached the edge of a glowing lake. The water mirrored the stars, making it look like the galaxy had spilled onto the earth. The queen stopped, her cloak trailing across the soft grass. She stood silent for a moment, staring. At her reflection in the water, the silver crown, the armor cracked from battle. A queen without a throne. A ruler without a war. What am I now? She whispered, not realizing she spoke aloud. The human stood behind her. Free, he said softly. She turned, her silver eyes locking on his. Something inside her snapped, not like glass, but like chains breaking. Before she could stop herself, she stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of his body, the roughness of his breath against her skin. This is wrong, she whispered, though her voice trembled. Then why does it feel like the only thing right? He asked. Her throat tightened. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to push him away. But instead, her hand moved, resting against his jaw. Warm, alive, real. The first kiss was not soft. It was desperate, fierce like two storms colliding in ink. The night. The taste of blood and fire lingered between them, but it didn't matter. For the first time in centuries, the queen felt alive. When they finally broke apart, she pressed her forehead against his, her breath shaking. If the galaxy knew? Let them, he murmured. The galaxy can burn. She almost laughed. Sound so strange, so fragile, she barely recognized it as her own. Asterisk hours passed in a blur of whispers and shadows beneath the alien trees. For one night, war felt distant. For one night, she allowed herself to be something other than a weapon. But the dawn came fast, and with it, a truth that stole her breath. She stood by the lake again, her reflection staring back with something new in her eyes. She pressed a hand against her stomach, a shiver running through her. The bond between species was forbidden, unnatural. It was not supposed to happen. Not like this. Not ever. And yet, life pulsed beneath her palm. Fragile, fierce, impossible. When he woke, he found her standing there, the wind lifting her silver hair like strands of starlight. Her face was unreadable, but her voice shook when she spoke. Human, she whispered. There is life inside me. His eyes widened. For a heartbeat, he could not move. Then, slowly, a smile broke across his face, not mocking, not afraid. A smile full of wonder. You mean? She nodded, her throat tight. Our life, a future neither of us imagined. He stepped closer, his hand covering hers, warm against her trembling fingers. Then let the galaxy rage, he said softly. We'll build something better. Her chest ached. Not with fear, not with anger. With something she had never known. Hope. Asterisk. The queen had lived through 1,000 battles. She had stood on burning worlds, watched suns collapse, seen empires crumble under her heel. But nothing had prepared her for this. Not for the weight of a future growing inside her. Not for the fire in her chest that had nothing to do with war. Not for the human who now stood at her side, staring into the stars like they belonged to him too. Asterisk. The hidden world had been kind to them for 3 nights. 3 nights of stolen peace beneath silver skies, where the hum of warships could not reach them. But peace is fragile, and the galaxy does not forgive queens who break its rules. At dawn on the 4th day, the skies burned. The first blast shook. The mountains. Fire streaked across the horizon as enemy dreadnoughts broke through the clouds, their hulls glowing like molten steel. The queen stood on the crystal cliffs, her silver armor reforged, her living crown blazing like a star. Her silver eyes narrowed as the fleet darkened the skies. "They've found us," she said quietly. The human stepped beside her, gripping the rifle he had cleaned 100 times, though he knew it would never be enough against ships that could. "Shatter worlds. What now?" he asked, voice steady despite the storm above. She turned her gaze on him, and for the first time in centuries, her voice softened not as a queen, but as something more. "Now," she whispered, "we fight. For more than a throne." Asterisk, her voice carried through the hidden frequencies of the old empire, a transmission laced with fire. "To all who still honor the blood oath, to all who still believe in the crown your queen calls." Her words roared across the stars like thunder, waking fleets that had slept in shadow. "Rise, for me, for us, for a future where power is, not built on bones, but on something greater." Allies who had vanished in the dark of rebellion answered her call. Old warships ignited their engines. Hidden armories cracked open after decades of silence. By the time the enemy fleet descended in full, the skies trembled not with death, but with the return of a queen who refused to fall. Asterisk, the void above the sanctuary world exploded into chaos. Warships clashed like titans, spitting fire and death into the black. Plasma beams carved burning scars across the heavens. Missiles screamed like demons. The galaxy itself seemed to roar. The Queen's flagship, the Veralia Ascendant, cut through the storm like a blade of light. Its hull gleamed with living metal, its engines glowing like newborn suns. And at its helm stood the Queen herself, her silver hair flowing like molten moonlight, her crown alive with power. Beside her stood the human, not in chains, not as a prisoner, but as something no one had dared to imagine. Her equal, her choice. When the enemy broadcast reached them, filled with venom, the Council's voice spat. "Queen of Ashes, surrender now, and perhaps we will let your hybrid abomination die quickly." The Queen's silver eyes burned hotter than any star. She opened the channel, her voice a blade of ice. "You speak of abomination," she said, "but what I carry is destiny." Then she gave the command that would be remembered for centuries. "Burn their world ships. Leave nothing." The Ascendant roared forward, its guns spitting storms of plasma, tearing through the enemy like fire through silk. Loyalist fleets rose. Around her, a tide of steel and vengeance. Asterisk, he had never fought a war like this. Earth's battles were dust compared to the inferno outside these walls. But he fought anyway at her side, in the command deck where death lurked behind every flashing screen. When enemy boarders broke through the shields and stormed the corridors, he took up arms again, moving like a shadow through smoke and blood. He fought not for glory, not for honor. He fought for her. By the time the last of the assassins fell at his feet, his hands were slick with blood and fire burned in his lungs. He staggered back into the command deck, where the Queen stood like a goddess of war, her armor cracked and blazing. Their eyes met through the smoke. In that moment, words were nothing. Only the truth mattered, the truth that they had chosen each other, against the stars, against the galaxy, against everything. Asterisk, when the last dreadnought split apart. In a bloom of silver fire, the void fell silent. The Council was broken. The traitors scattered like ash in the wind. The Queen stood at the heart of her flagship, staring at the ruin beyond the glass. Victory tasted different this time, not like iron, but like breath after drowning. But as the silence settled, a sharp pain cut through her body. She gripped the railing, her silver eyes flashing wide. "Queen!" The Loyalists cried, rushing forward, but it was the human who reached her first, catching her as her knees buckled. "It's starting," she whispered, her voice tight, raw. "The child. It's coming." His heart slammed like a drum. "Now? Here?" She gave a faint, broken laugh through the pain. Life doesn't wait for thrones. He swept her into his arms, carrying her through smoke and sparks as alarms screamed in the distance. He had fought armies. He had faced death 1,000 times tonight. But nothing terrified him more than losing her now. Hours later, as the shattered fleets drifted in silence and the fires dimmed on the sanctuary world below, a cry broke the awe. A sound no one had heard before in all the known stars. Child's cry. The queen lay beneath the soft glow of the crystal trees. Her silver hair spread like light across the dark earth. Her armor was gone, her crown set aside. She was no longer the queen of endless wars. She was something more. In her arms lay the child, tiny, fragile, but fierce, with silver flecks in its dark eyes. A child that should not exist. A child that would change everything. The human knelt beside her, his hand trembling as he touched the newborn skin. His voice was barely a whisper. Perfect. The queen turned her gaze to him. For centuries, her eyes had been hard as steel, cold as ice. But now, they burned with something new, something bright and terrifying and beautiful. Hope. She reached up, her fingers curling around his hand. We will build a new empire, she said softly, not of fear, not of death, but for this. He bent his head, pressing his forehead against hers. For them, he whispered. Above them, the galaxy stretched endless and dark, waiting. But, for the first time, it did not feel empty. For the first time, it felt like home. The end.